What will our antiques experts find here today? No doubt some porcelain, perhaps a great piece of American folk art, or some musical instruments, maybe even a great piece of American furniture. We'll find out in a few moments.
Antiques Roadshow is made possible by the Chubb Group of insurance companies, who, along with 3,000 independent agents and brokers, can insure your world.
And by the annual financial support from viewers like you.
With us today, as always, are specialists from the country's top auction houses, joined by an outstanding group of independent auctioneers, dealers, and appraisers who have come from near and far to be at this event. Now, let's listen in on our first appraisal.
He was my mother's when she was a child. She was born in 1924, so I'm not exactly sure, you know, how old she was when she received him, but he was among my grandmother's things when she passed.
Now, this is a classic Mickey from the early period, and one of the keys to determining whether it's an old Mickey is these eyes, which we call pie-cut eyes. This is an exceptional condition. I don't recall ever having seen one in this fine a condition. It was made by a company called Ideal. They were specialized in wooden jointed dolls, jointed with elastic so that they could be posed in all sorts of forms. And, you know, they were just wonderful toys, and generally very well played with, and seldom, as I say, surviving in this condition. It's not a rare Mickey. A number of them have survived and turned up, and in average condition would probably be worth around $400 to $500. I would value this one more like $800.
My.
Because it's extraordinary. I mean,
Wow.
It's just like near mint.
Wow.
I was working at the Pentagon, then the president got killed. Working in the mailroom.
Working in the mailroom.
And it come as a shock, you know, and everybody said, oh my goodness, you know. All this mail was coming in for, you know, after the funeral and everything.
Exactly.
It was so in flux that they couldn't take it at the regular post office, so they set up a mail place at the Pentagon.
And you had to oversee that to make sure that...
And me and two other supervisors were detailed over there, and we processed the mail, you know, in different categories. You know, it came in different categories.
Right.
And so as we processed it, and then we would bag it up, and then they would send it back over to the White House, and then they would take their mail room took care
of it from there.
You know, from there. Yeah, right.
Did you ever meet Jacqueline Kennedy?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I have met the president too, also.
As well.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
I met the president also.
Okay. Well, let's start with this big piece here. Tell me a little bit about this card and what's special about it.
She sent this along with the letter and the picture of the family and this picture of the green room.
Right.
And it came around close to Christmas time, and she put a notation on the back, Happy Christmas. And I was glad to get it, you know, as we wasn't expecting, you know, no personal letter from her.
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about this. The photograph itself, now you can see the photo here. There is some damage to the photograph.
Yes,
and let's take a look at that, a closer look.
Yeah.
You see that there's a line through there. Now, you can get that restored.
Yes.
There are photo processes now that you can get it restored, which I would suggest doing, because you've got the crease that goes right through, you know,
because
in a bad
we
section
took
of
it
the
out.
photograph.
We took it out, and it was just folded up. She put it in the buffet, you know, and so that's what happened. Yeah, right.
The value here is if you take a look at the letter, and if we get a close-up here of the signature, this is a regular signature. It's not a pen machine signature. She actually signed this. And also that the letter does reference, if you read a little bit here, it does reference the president's death and the sorrow and thanking you for, did you write her a letter or something? No, but just for your service and sorting the letters.
just for our services.
Right.
Yeah,
And it is on her personal stationery, Mrs. JFK.
Right.
And this is a piece, do you have any idea what the piece might be worth, or has anyone told you what it was worth?
No.
This is a great package. All of the things together, if you even not getting the photograph restored probably would still enhance the value because you have everything as one package. I would say this is a piece that a collector would probably spend at least $10,000 for.
Right, okay. Good.
Is that something you were thinking about, hoping for,
Maybe
right?
so. Yeah, right.
Well, good.
Tell me a little about how you ended up with this.
It was left to me by my mother-in-law. She left me lots of lovely pieces, but this happened to be one that was named in her will, so I had a feeling that maybe it was one she wanted me to pay particular attention to.
Have you ever had it valued before?
No, I never have, no. Of course, I love glass, and the Lalique pieces that I just have looked at, basically ones that have been selling in the retail stores, new pieces.
Well, it is, as you say, by Lalique. Particularly, it's designed by René Lalique, who was the founder of the company in the Alsace region of France, where this was made, and where indeed Lalique is still made today. If we wanted to confirm that this was Lalique, all we need to do is turn it over. We can see a well-impressed signature on the bottom there. It just spells out the word Lalique with the L extended underneath. This is typical of an impressed signature that we find on this vase and others around 1920. The name of it, and every Lalique design had its own name, is courge, which is a French word meaning gourds, as we would say. And you can see the gourd design on here. These strange-looking kind of fruits are gourds, which are also very Japanese in taste. René Lalique was very heavily influenced by the art and design of Japan, which he was exposed to as a youngster in Paris in the 1870s and the 1880s. And that influence stayed with him throughout his life. One of the things I like about the courge vase is the way that Lalique has made the decorative elements here, the courge themselves or the gourds, different from one another. In one case, you can see in this example, the surface of the vessel is kind of frosted. It comes out of the metal mold, in fact, that way, and very little has been done to it to keep this frosting on the surface. The one next to it, or just behind it, you can see, though, it's been polished. After the vase was molded, someone has taken this when it's in a cold state and polished this and other pieces of the design to make them stand out a little from the background. It's a clever little technique and the kind of detail that René Lalique was very good at conceiving and executing. You've got a valuable vase, Eileen. Today, this piece, if you were to see it on the auction market, would sell for at least $8,000 and perhaps as much as $10,000 or even $12,000.
Well, I appreciate that. I had no idea.
I was so excited for you to bring these things in. Tell me a little bit about how you got them.
Well, these are all rings and things that I collected when I was a child. I sent in box tops from cereal, or my mother did for me, and usually 2 or 3 box tops, and you receive back a prize, and this is a result of that.
Oh, wonderful. Did you watch all these shows with Roy Rogers, Tom Mix, Sky King?
I sure did, yeah.
You were a big fan?
Yes, I was.
So, as a kid getting this, you were what, 10 years old, 8 years old?
8 or 10 years old.
How did you feel about getting one of these in the mail?
Well, I waited and waited until the mail came.
This is a fabulous collection, and we've isolated some to talk about. This particular one, Sky King, is in a little electronic TV because it's in such nice condition and has the image of Roy Rogers inside. It's worth about $200 to $250. This is a teleblinker. These are very desirable, especially since they were large. They were one of them that was always lost or destroyed. And this one alone has a value of about $300. here is one of the most favorite shows. You remember this, the Lone Ranger?
That was probably my favorite character and probably my favorite ring.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you obviously had a ring and a toy because it's sparked as well. So you had a wonderful collectible. This one has a value of about $250. We have, again, Lone Ranger. This is unusual because it was filmed to be viewed, and as you can well imagine, most of the film gets lost as the kids get older or they get thrown away, and there's no discoloration. It's really in impeccable condition, and something like this would have a value of about $200. So you almost have $1,000 worth of value in rings just right there. And you have another probably, what, 20 in your collection with these. There is a record for one of these premium rings that were sold, and it is of Superman. It's a very, very collectible ring, and I hope you don't have that one at home.
I'm afraid I don't have that.
Oh, well, that one has sold for $100,000, and there are only 2 known copies of that ring.
I'll look again.
I would too. But I would say that for the collection that's also on the table, we're looking at probably another $2,000 to $2,500 worth of value. And on the market today, there are very good reference guides, like the Overstreet Comic Book Guide, that has a section for just premium rings that you can price these. And I'm really so happy that you brought them in today.
Well, I enjoyed them many years ago, and it looks like maybe I'll enjoy them again.
Good. Maybe they'll pay you back.
Maybe.
What can you tell me about where the pistols came from?
They came from a person I've known 20 to 30 years ago. His name was Hops, and he bought antique guns. He loved antique guns. And when he passed away, I was wondering what happened to all the rifles and stuff. He had Colts and everything else. So I went out and talked to his son, and he said, my dad gave the guns to my sister.
Oh.
And so a few years went by, and he come back, and he says, you and Dad were pretty tight, weren't you? I said, yeah, I thought a lot of the old man. And he said, tell you what I'm going to do. He said, the old blacksmith shop's out there. He said, if you'll take everything out of the blacksmith shop, all the junk, you have to take everything out, it's all yours. We found the old set of pistols in the building there.
In the box, just like this?
Just like it is now, yes, sir.
Great. So how long have you had these pistols in your possession?
Oh, about 20, 25 years.
Wow. Did you ever do any research on them at all? Well, let me see if I can help you out with some information. The pistols are encased in the box. The box was originally veneered. You can see some of the elements on the veneer still on the front. It is a brass-mounted box. That's a deluxe feature. As we lift open the box, we have the pistols inside. Now, these pistols are French-made. They were originally sawback pistols. See the area of the case here, how it opens up into a fan? Originally, the guns had a big fin that came off the back here. If you notice with the cross-hatching here, the cross-hatching actually stops on either side because originally a fin came back into the area here. It was a design that helps us date the pistols and when they were made. These are French-made, and they're about 1860 in terms of production. The very fine tooling is what's called Damascus turning or Damascus steel. Okay, it was a very fine way of producing the guns. The butts here are actually of horn. Each of these guns is numbered with a number 1 and a number 2 on the bottom because they were a cased pair. Okay? These guns would have been called parlor guns. Most people would have called them dueling pistols. However, by the 1860s, dueling had been outlawed. So they were parlor pistols are actually used as target guns. Okay? The deluxe wood on them is called a burled wood. It's very, very pretty. I'm sure you've noticed over time. But you have a cased pair of pistols in a beautiful veneered case that's brass mounted, and the value of these would be about $4,000 to $6,000.
Really?
Really.
I wouldn't have thought that much.
They are absolutely gorgeous pistols.
$4,000 to $6,000.
$4,000 to $6,000.
That's American money.
That's American money, greenback American money.
God, dog, that's surprising. When I looked at that box, all I could see was where the termites got into it, and I said, what a shame, what a shame. That's the only thing I ever thought about.
I'll tell you, Mr. Marley, with something like this, don't look for what happened to it. Look for what's still there.
I see your point.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a
look
good
for
point
what's
there.
still there, because
All
they're
right.
a gorgeous set of pistols.
Well, I'm glad we came down.
When she was going over to China, I told her, find me some little statues of little men and make them as old as you can find them. And that was her mission, and then she can tell you how she was able to find them.
How did you find them?
My husband and I were in Wuxi, China, just northeast of Shanghai, and we were working there for 2.5 months and in a factory, and we went to this little shop. Every Sunday we would go over there, and
a little antique shop.
Little antique shop, and I asked him about them, and I think
who was the shopkeeper? Was he an old fellow?
He was an old fellow, yeah. His family, his wife was there sometimes, and a son. Pretty popular with the Americans that were over there, and he wanted about 3,000 NT for them.
Which is about $400 US?
About that, yes. I kept looking at them, and I had a Chinese girl come with me. We went in and negotiated with him and got him.
Was he a tough negotiator?
Yeah, he was. He really was a tough.
He didn't want to cut the price.
No, he didn't, but he ended up cutting the price considerably. We finally got them for about 200 NT after we had finally said
about $30.
About $30, which
that's a drop. 400 to 30, isn't it?
Well, we had walked out, and I said, no, I don't want them. It's too much money.
And did he come chasing you?
He came chasing me with and said, okay, okay. But we had bought probably maybe $200-300 worth of other items that day in the store too. So that was the last thing I was.
What did he
picked
tell
up.
you about these?
He really didn't tell me a whole lot about them. I had no idea if they were really old or not.
Did you get the impression they were pretty old?
The Chinese gal that was with me knew a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit about older antique items, and she told me she thought they could be, but they may not be. So I just took a chance on it.
Well, next time you go to China, I'm going to give you some tips.
Okay.
So you know what to look at, okay? One of the first things to look for are the colors that are used in the glaze enamels. And if you notice on all of these, the colors are very bright and glassy, which is indicative of enamels that were used in the late 19th, 20th century. And in particular, the rose-colored enamels that were used, or the bright blues, are colors that are also typical of late 19th century. These are depictions of what are called the 8 immortals, which are 8 Chinese deities that are very common in mythology and literature. And you see them represented all the time. So it's nice that they're all together. But if you were also to flip it over and look at the underside of one of these, I'll just lie it on its back, you would see that the color of the clay is sort of a bony white grayish color, which is not a clay that was used in the major ceramic center of Jingdezhen. So you know that this wasn't made in a major place. It was sort of a regional production, a little minor production. The likelihood, frankly, is that these are almost brand new. You can get things like this pretty easily. They're often represented to be much older than they are. And the value of them probably is about $2 each. So you've got 8 of them, which is $16. So you paid $30, so you got taken a little bit, but not too much.
Okay.
But that's exactly what they are. So next time you go to China, you look for things that are these bright colors and you run the other way instead of buying them, because they're not going to be as old as they said they are.
19th century copy of a very famous painting by Esteban Murillo.
Now we're with Kerry Keane of Skinner's. Kerry has brought with him a few American classics. Kerry, why are these guitars called American classics?
Well, first of all 4 of these guitars are archtops. And archtop tradition of making wasn't seen anywhere but the United States, and it emulated first in the 1890s. 3 of them here are by the Gibson shop in Kalamazoo, and 1 by John Giangelico working in New York. What is unique is that the archtop was developed right here in the United States. It's often said by people, only in America. Such is the case with Orville Gibson, a full-time shoe salesman in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and a part-time guitar maker. When we look at this stylo from 1918, its basic outline is guitar, but when we look at it closer, it's violin in its construction, meaning he didn't make guitars from thin pieces of wood that were cut and bent and shaped into a guitar. In fact, he carved them from solid pieces of wood, just like a violin.
So this bowing here is why they're called archtop guitars.
Precisely.
I see.
Precisely.
And is it bowed on the back as well?
It is also bowed on the back, all of which is carved out of solid wood.
Isn't that fantastic?
You know, this Italian tradition wasn't lost on old Orville. He would use it in his marketing schemes. He used to say varnished with the Cremona brown color, or one of my all-time favorites, carved like a Stradivarius.
Yeah.
You know, another development that Orville came up with was the cutaway, and we can look at these stylos and say these are the first cutaways ever made. It's not only for design, but it also enables the player to reach up high on the octave and play up high on the neck with ease. Unfortunately, when you cut the instrument away like this, it robs it of air volume.
Sure.
And what any violin maker will tell you, you rob it of air volume, you rob it of sound.
Yeah.
The players of the period realized this quickly, and by 1920, he stopped making them. They disappeared.
This is all in the era of pre-electric guitars.
Absolutely. When we look at this L5 from 1930, here's a point where the Gibson shop has really hit it right on.
Yeah.
They sound great. They cut through a band. They project out to the audience. Because remember, you're right. They can't plug them into the wall.
Right.
And it's not until 1939 that suddenly they start thinking about the cutaway again, and it's reintroduced to the guitar. And from that point, they never look back. It's cutaways always, as we see in this great example over here, made in 1949 by John D'Angelico in New York. This is New York.
That is absolutely magnificent. It's really beautiful.
Fabulous work, fabulous varnish on it. And here again, a maker who's emulating the deco design of the period.
What I particularly like is up here where he's done sort of mock skyscrapers with abalone shells.
And he called them the New Yorker. We recognize these guitars and these instruments to be icons of our popular American culture on many different levels, from B.B. King's Lucille to the guitarist and band leader G.E. Smith on Saturday Night Live.
So this is something else uniquely American that we've brought to the world, and here the world of music.
Absolutely.
Gee, and we always thought the cutaway was a suit.
It gives me some more knowledge about them anyway.
Very nice.
40 years ago, a friend of the family who had an antique shop in Wellesley Hills knew that I collected anything with a rabbit motif. And she bought out an estate, which I think was Judge Baker's estate from Dedham.
From Dedham.
And she said, I have something I would like to give you to add to your collection.
So do you believe that this was a piece of Dedham pottery?
Dedham pottery.
Because of the rabbit decoration on it, which was a common thing that Dedham pottery did during the arts and crafts movement in America, which was about 1900 through the 1930s. Actually, what this piece is a piece of Saturday Evening Girls.
Oh, is that what you call it?
And Saturday Evening Girls was a pottery company that actually started as a club in Boston, Massachusetts, which was a group of women artists who were brought in basically off the streets, and usually in the north end to Boston, and people who supported the group wanted to teach them the fine arts.
Oh, I see. That's
and this piece is actually dated 1911 by one of the girls in 1911. And it was founded in 1906, and they would meet on Saturday evenings in the library club, which was by the Old North Church.
Oh, yes.
And later on, they called themselves Paul Revere Pottery because the lanterns were hung on the Old North Church next to the pottery company.
I see.
And so
that's very interesting.
Mrs. Sturrow Drive in Boston was actually someone who gave money to support the club and the girls. And in about 1911, there were about 13 women making pottery. And then it became very successful later on, and it moved to Brighton, Massachusetts. And you could mail order these little children's sets and items throughout the country. And by then, up to about 1938, they had almost 20 women working in a factory. But the whole concept, which was part of the Arts and Crafts Society here in Boston, was to teach the fine arts to the young ladies, to basically get them off the streets in the North End, the underprivileged immigrants that came over. And they taught them the fine arts. And Edith Brown, who was a librarian at the Boston Library, used to design these patterns for them. And some people believe that these patterns, especially the rabbit, which was done on Dedham pottery also, was taken from some of the museum school classes at the Boston.
So this
Fine Arts
really
Museum.
isn't Dedham
So
pottery.
it's not Dedham, it's Saturday
see.
Evening Girls. And after 1916, it was marked Paul Revere pottery. And an item like this, its value is really the wonderful story that goes with it of the immigrant ladies. Its approximate value is about $150.
$150.
Yes.
Wow, that's very interesting.
This was actually something borrowed on my wedding day, and my mother-in-law very graciously loaned it to me. I was really hoping at the end of the wedding that she'd turn to me and say, well, congratulations, my dear, and here's a gift for you, because I think it's a very lovely pin. But in fact, she said, that looks lovely on you. May I please have it back? But 5 years later, on my wedding anniversary, she did give it to me as a present.
Well, it's a very exciting piece of what we call American Art Nouveau jewelry. It shows the profile, classic profile of a woman, and these beautiful flowers that are done in repoussé gold. And what's interesting about this is that it's got some writing on it. I'm just going to look at it with my loupe. And it says autumn. So it tells me that there might have been a series made of the 4 seasons, and this is one. And now I'm just going to examine the back of it. Well, this is what we call the appraiser's dream. It's a piece of jewelry that tells you who made it and almost the dating of it. It's got a hallmark for a Newark, New Jersey company, Biphart, Grissom, and Osborne. And they started actually in 1886, so this would date this to about 1890, turn of the century. And they did beautiful gold work, as you can see the chasing on it and the high relief. I think it's a great piece of jewelry. It's in great condition. It tells a story. It tells where it was made, the caratage. You have a winner. I would say in the market today, you're probably looking at $1,000 to $1,500 for this small pin. It's a great piece of jewelry. Do you have any questions about it?
Not really. You say Newark, New Jersey was where it was manufactured?
Yeah, and they were actually one of the prime areas for jewelry manufacturing in this country. And a lot of the gold work that we see from that period is absolutely beautiful. This actually was used also for a watch holder. It has a stem in the back that you can actually attach a watch.
I was wondering what that stem was for.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Thank
it's
you.
very, very exciting to see a great piece of American Art Nouveau jewelry.
My mother was born and raised in New Zealand. She was a war bride when she came over from New Zealand to live here in the States. This was a piece she brought with her. It was hanging on our wall in our living room for a number of years. It didn't belong to her family. Somebody gave it to her.
Was it kept in a cherished place, or was it just left in a drawer?
I was told it was a fertility symbol. We didn't have a lot of children, so I don't know if that... No, I kept it in a drawer for the last 20 years in a box.
Well, it is in fact a fertility object from the Maori tribe of New Zealand. This is a very beautiful example. Many of these today that you see are actually have been made as copies, fakes, in the last 30, 40, 50 years. I am quite certain, 100% certain, that this is actually a real tiki, as they're called, Maori tiki, made from greenstone or jade. It is, in my opinion, that it dates to certainly before 1850 or the first part of the 19th century, and it possibly is 18th century. I've been able to ascertain its date based on a couple of things. The amount of wear here around this hole. These were worn strung around the neck, and over time the neck cord would actually wear away the jade, giving you this sort of rounded impression. One of the things we look for, or specialists in this area and collectors in this area look for, is the sculptural quality of these. Some of them are flat, much flatter. This one has nice size and volume to it. It's rounded area in the belly. terms of valuing objects like this, larger examples tend to be worth a little more. The record price for a tiki of this type is in excess of 60,000 American dollars.
Excuse me?
That is the record
Was that
60,000 American dollars. It is, in my opinion, that your example here has a fair market value of somewhere between 10 and 15,000 American dollars.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. To think it was hanging on the wall.
By this cord.
By that cord.
Tell me, where did you purchase this car?
We actually purchased this from a dealer. We sometimes purchase things from antique shops and auctions, and we try to keep our eye out for interesting automotive selections like this.
And about how much did you pay for it?
About $5,000.
And what did you think of it at the time?
Well, we knew that it was not a common item that we had seen around and that it was in very good condition. And we felt the price was fair. We knew that we weren't going to buy it for anything less than that.
And what have you found out anything since then?
We've had 2 offers for it, and no, we will not sell it.
How much have you been offered?
One of the offers I know was about $7,500.
$7,500?
And we've only had it a little over a year.
Now this is hard to believe. I mean, this is a toy. This is a 1930s piece of cast iron. The great thing about this car that I know, Parmalee was a Chicago cab company. Arcade was a cast iron maker from Freeport, Illinois. This was only made for 1 year, and it was 1936. They never made it after that, and they used these unusual yellow and black colors for the Parmalee cab company. So for the dealer to offer you $7,500, that's never heard of. Usually when you buy something, it takes a long time for it to appreciate again. Now, the dealer offering you $7,500, know that that's probably worth closer, at least $8,500 to $10,000, because this particular cab, from what my experience, there are only about 15 of them known in the country. And in this beautiful condition, if this cab were only half the condition, it would only be half the price.
Right. And not only that, it's a part of American history. My understanding is that cast iron is mostly American, that very few other countries ever did it, and they didn't do it as well.
And hard to believe that a toy made in the Depression has lasted this long. Kids usually play with their toys a lot harder.
Not only that, I understand that a lot of the toys were given to the metal drives in World War II. The kids would give up their toys to help the war effort, so, that's even makes this more rare.
Well, what's even unusual about this is that they use nickel-plated. The front is nickel-plated, you'll notice, which means it's a whole separate casting, and so is the rear. You obviously must be a collector. You sound like you have some experience.
My husband is the real collector. He was an auto mechanic, but he loves these cars because he doesn't have to work on them.
What can you tell me about the origin of all these photographs?
This book belonged to my husband's great-grandfather, P.H. Taylor. And he was a school teacher in Minnesota and was volunteered for the first Minnesota Volunteers at that time. And I assume they're all pictures from his time.
Most of the images in this album are from the 1st Minnesota. And the 1st Minnesota was a very famous regiment during the Civil War, and these are all Civil War period images that are in here. The 1st Minnesota fought at the Battle of Gettysburg. And on the 2nd day at the Battle of Gettysburg, which was a 3-day battle, the 2nd Minnesota was involved in a charge in which the majority of the regiment was completely decimated, was wiped out. They still remained at Gettysburg for the 3rd day and actually ended up being in a position where they repulsed Pickett's charge. When the Battle of Gettysburg was over, 82% of the regiment had fallen to casualties.
One of them was the P.H. Taylor's brother, Isaac. He was killed at Gettysburg.
Okay. I had brought some of the images out of the album for us to talk about because I think they're an interesting array of a group of pictures. The first here is a sergeant from the 1st Minnesota. But what I found particularly attractive about all these images is that they're all identified on the back. It's very rare to see such a large number of photographs, all specifically identified. This sergeant in particular was killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. We have the colonel here that commanded the 1st Minnesota, a beautiful carte de visite image here. He's wearing a model 1850 foot officer sword, and we can see his double-breasted frock very, very clearly. It's a great image, and again, it's identified on the back. One of my favorite ones is the middle one here. This is the flag bearer of the 1st Minnesota. And you can see on his kepi up top the insignia with the 1 in the middle and the tattered flags from the Battle of Gettysburg. The 4th picture over here is very, very unique. We have a sergeant here, but this little medal that you can see here, it's shaped like a clover. That's known as a Corps badge from the 2nd Corps, and the 1st Minnesota was part of the 2nd Corps. And the first time that you really see Corps badges coming out is during the Civil War. The last image all the way over here is another gentleman. He's wearing an extremely rare medal known as a Kearney medal, and that medal was solid gold, and it was in honor and in memory of General Kearney. The other image down here, this is known as a gem tintype. It's different than these carte de visites up here because it's a tintype. And what's great about this image here is he signed it, yours truly, Dale, at the bottom. I love your photographs, especially the fact that they're all identified, that are all part of the 1st Minnesota. It's an extremely important part of American history. Do you have any idea of their value?
No, I don't.
Many of these images may be the only ones known because it was such a small unit after the Battle of Gettysburg. So I would encourage you not to break them up or to, separate them at any time. The value on this grouping as a whole is about $5,000 to $6,000.
I do know that my sons all said no way would they ever sell any of these.
I hope not.
That this was their family history and that they would not sell.
I think that's very important. They should stay together. And you have intermixed in here, besides the soldiers of the 1st Minnesota, you have generals such as General Sedgwick and General McClellan interspersed throughout the book. And I hope that you never sell it. I hope that you keep it together in your family.
My husband was in the military. We were living in Japan at the time.
Really?
And I got them, I guess maybe through the antique trader.
Yeah.
I corresponded with people and got them.
How long ago was this?
It's in probably the early 60s.
Oh, great time to buy dolls at that time.
Yeah.
What I want to focus on in particular is this center doll here, which is very nice. Do you remember how much you paid for this piece?
I think almost $600, $595, I believe.
In the 60s,
right.
And that's great. And did you acquire this in Japan at the time
yes,
as well?
It was
oh, that's
sent
great.
There.
That's great. Well, this is a very fine example of a Jumeau doll. It's an EJ, and there are some features that I'd like to point out on the doll that I think really make it stand out as a fine example. The first thing is the paperweight eyes. You can see the eyes here, the blue eyes, the paperweight eyes, as well as the closed mouth. Closed mouth dolls are more valuable than open mouth for some reason. They have collectors look for the closed mouth. Also the bisque itself. You can see how nice the bisque is all in this area. This is very important because if there are any hairline cracks or anything else, that really makes it less collectible. The other nice thing is that you can see on the hair there's a pate, a cork pate that is right here, and that's very important, and that appears to be original. The final thing that makes that in determining its value is on the back here. There's an incision, and you can see incised here it says EJ A10.
Right.
And that gives us some indication of when it was produced and about when the piece was made, which with that marking, it appears to be around 1880s is when it was produced. Through about the 1900s is when they produced that. The final stamp on this, which really makes it important, is the body is very important. It's a composition body, which was very common. Jumeau made a number of composition bodies. But if I can turn this around, I will show you that on the back here is a stamp that says Jumeau as well, which means that the body and the head both match, which is also very important. A stamped Jumeau body is much more desirable for a collector than just a regular body. Now, what would you think something like this might be worth?
I really haven't kept up with them.
Really?
No.
Really? Well, what would you do if I told you this could possibly bring $10,000?
That would be very nice.
Yes. It's a fine example, and because the head and the body are both marked, I think you have a wonderful potential here to bring that much at auction.
Great, thank you.
This is a marvelous silver cake basket.
Thanks.
Is this an old family piece?
Yes, it is. It was given to me by my mother after my father died, but it really came down from his side of the family.
It's always nice to have a piece of family silver. It's made in the reign of George II, and as you may know, it is hallmarked on the base here. These silver marks here are the official hallmarks put on as a guarantee of the purity of the silver. The lucky thing for us today is it means that we can accurately date the piece. We can tell from these marks that it's sterling, that it's made in London, and it was made in 1737, which is this date letter here, the B. It also has the mark of the maker, the man who made it, the IS here, which in fact is the mark used by James Schroeder, who is an interesting character. He was probably a German silversmith who was working in London at this period and managed to become a member of the Goldsmiths Company, which allowed him to make silver. All the silver that bears his mark is of fantastic quality, and this is really a superb example of a Georgian cake basket. This very bold chasing here is very crisp, and even the weight, you've probably noticed the weight's very heavy. It has a very good feel to it. In the center is probably, I think, the best feature of it, this engraved coat of arms. Is that anything to do with your family?
Yes, it's a family coat of arms.
I see, yes. So this has been in the family for a long time.
Yes.
Then. The engraving of the coat of arms actually is fantastic. It's got a wonderful cartouche here, flanked by two cherubs here. And it's nice to have an original engraved coat of arms on a piece, because often things have been re-engraved, subsequent changes of owner, things have been erased. It's nice to have something that's basically all original. Do you have any idea of its value?
Well, we had it appraised for estate purposes, and it was appraised at about $15,000. This was about probably 5 years ago.
That sounds pretty fair value then. I think in recent years it's gone up in value. I think I would expect it in today's market to sell for between $20,000 and $25,000. The market for this kind of thing at the moment is going up. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
It's a wall pocket. We've had it for approximately 25 years. It was dug up by a dog in a cemetery.
Oh my God!
And the man whose dog dug it up brought it to my dad, and he paid $10 for it. And we took it home, scrubbed it up with soap and water, and it's been hanging on the wall ever since.
Oh, wonderful. Was that here in North Carolina?
It was in Charlotte.
Oh, wonderful. This happens to be a piece by a famous company called Weller, who was a very famous art pottery company. They started actually in the 1890s by a man who had one kiln, and he grew up into a very wonderful place. It was out of Zanesville, Ohio, and at that time, the art pottery movement was very fertile in that area. There were many famous companies, Roseville, Owens. They were all competing with another company called Rookwood in Cincinnati. And about this time, handcrafted pottery was very, very big. They had very good natural clay and wonderful phosphate to make the glazes with. This particular line was called woodcraft, and it is, molded as well as having the underglaze. And this little owl was a very common motif for it. It was one of the later periods, though. It was about 1925, 1930. But in that time period, it was in fact very popular to have wall pockets in your car. And hearses, cemetery cars, very often had wall pockets as well. That's where you kept the flowers that went to the cemetery. So finding this at a cemetery is actually one of
very places that these things would have been disposed of and thrown in with the casket. And it's a very large size, which is even nicer. What do you think something like this would be worth?
We just had no idea, about $50, $55.
Well, that's probably a good guess, not knowing who the maker was. But in fact, this just sold a couple months ago for $850. So I would say the dog had a very good nose.
I don't believe that.
Thank you so much for bringing it in.
Thank you.
Again, dated to late 19th century. It's a nice composition mold, plant stand, and put a light coat of oil on it, and put it on the wall, and
This is a pair of sculptures that we've had in the Athenaeum since the early 40s. They were given to us by Anna Hyatt Huntington. And interestingly enough, they were sitting on an open bookshelf in a room that the public uses. And a patron came in one day and said, "Do you have any idea of what these are?" And I did a little research and found out a little bit about her. So I'm here today to find out a little bit more.
Yeah. Anna Hyatt Huntington was a leading American sculptor of the 20th century. She trained in Paris and had a studio in New York, and she also had a studio in Massachusetts, in Annisquam. She was very prominent. She was one of the founding members of the National Sculpture Society, and her husband was Arthur Huntington, who was a major patron of the arts. She was primarily known as an animal sculptor, although she did a number of monuments. This is a very, very nice pair of bronze sculptures. They were cast by the Gorham Foundry. Gorham is the silver company that's very well known in Providence, Rhode Island. They had a foundry from about 1900 until the 1930s. They did very, very fine castings. These are done in the lost wax process, which gives them a wonderful amount of detail, and the patination is very, very good on these. They're signed with her name, and it also has the foundry mark. It says Gorham Founders, and it also has a code marking on it, and it's possible to look through the Gorham archives and find the exact date of the casting and the exact title of these pieces. They're wonderful pieces. As I said, most of her work is animal sculptures, so these are particularly rare because of the figures. They would be worth in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $7,000 at auction.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. It's interesting because I think most libraries in New England have pieces like this, and we have no idea what we have.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
It's kind of fun to find out what we really do have.
Good. I'm glad you came in.
So, thank you.
We'll come back to our tables in a minute, but first I'd like to introduce Philip Merrill of Baltimore, who will tell us about a new and expanding market, African-American memorabilia.
Today I'm going to show you some of the items that are absolutely blowing the lid off of the market as far as collectibles and black memorabilia go. Over here we have a wonderful autograph of Billie Holiday on a 1953 Decca label 45 with the hit song God Bless the Child. Over here we have some authentic slave shackles from Jacksonville, North Carolina, from between 1790 and 1830, but please be aware of reproductions and fakes, and I have a friend that can make a pair that can fool anyone in the country, but these are real. And right here, a segregation sign from Alabama in the 1940s and 50s. And one of my favorite pieces, this wonderful hair tobacco canister in the 20s. They replaced the N with the letter B and it became bigger hair. But some of my truly favorite items are the historical items that you can actually research and document. And I would love to show you this wonderful book from an 160-year-old church, Ebenezer AME in Baltimore. And this book was signed by some of the more prominent people in American history, such as Bishop Daniel A. Payne, first black president of Wilberforce University in Ohio, Bishop Wayman, friends with Frederick Douglass for over 50 years. Let's move over here to this wonderful World War I uniform of a Buffalo soldier. Morris Martin, in his uniform, was born in 1893 in Charleston, South Carolina. the dog tag right here with his ID number on it, as well as other items from the uniform. These type of items open up a gold mine worth of information for me. What really brings me my joy is the ability to research and document these items.
Now let's go back to the tables and see what our appraisers have found for us.
You brought us a very important find today. Can you give me any history on this?
I served with the sanction committee over in Macedonia against Bosnia-Herzegovina in the little town of Shopee in Macedonia.
This recently?
Yes. Found this with a little antique dealer in the shop. He sold it to me for $10. They found it digging a sewer ditch along the wall of the castle through the old cemetery on the side of the castle. They said it was Serbian. They didn't want anything to do with it and get it out.
They gave it to you for $10. Fantastic. Well, you have a very old ring here. It is made out of silver, but not in the silver that we think of today. It is practically raw silver, and when they refined raw silver, there was always copper in it and a lot of other metals. So when they made the particular piece, it was it's like 60% silver, not 90% silver, like sterling is today. So that's one of the reasons why we can find out and we can tell when it comes from and why it's so old, because it wouldn't be made that way today. The other thing on it is the interesting carvings on the side. You have a design motif with a little animal figurine on both sides. I don't know what the animal is, but this probably can be identified with some more research. The other interesting part about the center part of it, there is a bird motif. I happen to be Armenian. If you go into any Armenian church and you go to the altar, you see this bird. It's really a pigeon. It's a dove. And this very prominently flying. It's always flying. It's never sitting down. And what we have here is this particular bird flying. So I would say it is somewhere in Azerbaijan where this was made. It is quite old because it probably was cast, but it most likely was done in a sand casting or a one-time wax casting. It was finished crudely, wasn't polished. When you find those particular attributes of the particular type of mounting it's done, then you know you have an old piece. I would say this could possibly be easily 600-700 years old.
Was it a stamp ring?
It was a seal ring.
Yes.
It was for sealing. It was for sealing. And it was probably religious, probably belonged to a monk or a priest. And it was normally used for making marks on paper or on clay. Value-wise, to authenticate this, we'd have to go to a museum and get a little more information on it, but I think it's right. This particular piece could easily be worth over $3,000 today. I think you have a fantastic find, and you're not going back there, are you?
Hopefully not.
I'll come with you and dig.
Thank you.
You were telling me earlier today that this book was given to you by a friend.
I guess because she knew I loved music and art. She gave this book on great musicians and also some little books on great artists' journeys, and it's really delightful. I've just loved it.
And you love looking through, I'm sure, at all the little sketches and things inside the book here of all the musicians. And this book is divided up into a little story of each one, Frederick Chopin here. And what makes this book so intriguing, though, is actually not so much the stories of the musicians and the artists in these books, but actually the fact that it's the Little Journeys book, which was created by a man called Elbert Hubbard. And he made a fortune. And by 1892, he was about 36 years old. He decided he wanted to change his interest and went off and started traveling around Europe. He met William Morris, the head of the arts and crafts movement in England at the time. And one of the things that William Morris did was revive printmaking and find books in a return back to the monks type system. And Elbert Hubbard actually named himself the Roycrofters and came back to upstate New York and built the Roycroft community after a William Morris ideal. and he called it the Roycrofters, which was named after Thomas and Samuel Roycroft, who were two printers in London in the 17th century. And this one is fairly early because it's 1901, but what starts to make this so much fun is that the Little Journeys was an advertising thing that he did, and you could purchase the set of books, the Little Journeys editions, and you would get a whole set on various artists and discussions with like Oscar Wilde and all these things, and a lot of people who he never met, although he claimed to have met. And if you bought the set of books, he'd send you a free table to put the books in.
Oh my goodness.
Which is called the Little Journeys stand.
Oh.
And you'd fall in love with the stand and you'd order your whole dining room set from him. This particular book, although not a great deal of value, they sell somewhere in that sort of $100, $150 range. The little table that they would have come in, the Little Journeys table, sells for about $850. And they said in a fine periodical in 1915 that Elbert Hubbard had gone on his last little journey because in 1915, Elbert Hubbard died on the Lusitania. He went down on the Lusitania.
Oh my.
When you came this afternoon and I said, let's see if you can top the worst thing I've seen today, and you pulled out the best thing I've seen today, it was pretty much of a thrill. Tell me, how did you come by this wonderful little bonbonniere?
Well, this has been in the family forever, and in fact, I am related to the Pettigrews, which was the name at the bottom.
Indeed.
Don't exactly know how, except it was on my father's side, and it's just always been around. I have no idea what it is, and I can't wait to hear from you what it is.
It is most interesting because it's an object that we don't use today, but it's called a bonbonniere, and obviously was capable of holding little bonbons. And the wonderful thing about this particular one is that you can screw off the cover and it still has all of its original threading. So to have the cover actually fit and screw on is miraculous. But the most miraculous thing is this wonderful inscription on the bottom, which says, "A present to Robert Pettigrew, New York, from J. Pettigrew, 1830. Now this is almost unheard of. First of all, we have an inscription. That's rare. Secondly, it's an inscription that's dated, and the date is not just a made-up date. It's a real date, the date that the piece was made. And thirdly, New York, which gives it an American connotation. It's a real piece of American history. It's got all these wonderful, funny heads, and it's very hard to know who they're trying to represent. It was made probably in Staffordshire, certainly in 1830, and it's just one of the more exciting things I've ever found on one of these special occasions.
Now, you called it a...
It's a bonbonniere. Now, what we think of as being a bonbonniere is something to put little tiny bonbons in. I think probably in the 19th century when this was made, they may also have used it for snuff or for pills or for patches. Sometimes when ladies had strange pock marks, because everybody had had the smallpox, they would put little black patches over their face. And so these little tiny boxes were used for multi-purposes, but particularly for bonbonnieres. Now, to the value. For me to say anything over $25 is quite spectacular. In this instance, I think with everything going for it, we can say it's probably worth between about $2,500 and $3,500.
Great,
which
wonderful,
is very
sure.
exciting. And another one of those proofs that good things come in small packages.
Well, that wraps it up for this edition of Antiques Roadshow. We hope you found it entertaining, informative, and even exciting. Maybe you have, or maybe someday you'll find an antique that looks like something you've seen on the show today. So, with thanks to all our hosts here in Durham, especially the people at the Omni Durham Hotel and Civic Center, and with thanks to our appraisers and all the people who brought us such wonderful antiques to look at here today, I'm Chris Jussel, saying so long for this week from all of us on the Antiques Roadshow.